my first job, I suppose professionally, was then as a radio announcer. So I left the mines department and went to the Macquarie Broadcasting Network in North Queensland, so right out into the regions, up at Innisfail, and worked as a radio announcer for a while and a copywriter and newsreader. Well, I like to volunteer on different boards. I suppose one that I'm most passionate about is the National Trust in Queensland, so I'm Vice President of the National Trust. So I'm very interested in cultural heritage and regional communities and how culture, I suppose, can revitalise communities. So it's not surprising that I guess my hobbies are aligned still artistically as well. I'm also very interested in gardening and in antiques. So I don't know that any of those things fit outside the arts, but they're what I do when I'm not working here. Well, if you don't know how to do it, then you've got a real problem. Because everything we do depends on networking, and even more now with social media. You know, I find I've got to be on LinkedIn and Facebook. I am, if you'd like to link in or be on my Facebook. But I use that very much for work, and we as an organisation have a whole network of regional volunteers. We've got arts councils in 50 communities, local arts councils that are part of the Artslink network. We've got over 300 associate member organisations across the state. And our networking needs to be quite extraordinary. It's getting more and more and more complicated, and we only have to look at the number of emails that you get in a day. You know, I don't leave the state or there'll be 300 emails waiting when you get back. So clearly networking is not only important to us, it's important to everybody that we work with. A modicum of talent, a lot of luck, being in the right place at the right time, I think is an important part of this industry. I would have to say Alan Edwards. Alan was the first artistic director of Queensland Theatre Company. Began with that company end of '69, beginning of 1970, and I worked with him from 1970 for quite a long period of time as an actor, as a director, as a playwright, as a production manager, and also as an associate director over about a 15-year period, and learned an enormous amount from him. Very generous person and a great person to work with. Very privileged. And of course, in those days we had people like Geoffrey Rush, Billy Brown, Carol Burns, all of those people in the acting company as well, all of whom would probably say the same thing, that Alan made a great contribution in their career and in their life. I wanted to be a vet, I think, probably because I loved animals, not cutting them up or pulling them apart, but I just loved animals. So I wanted to be a vet, and I also thought I would like to be a zookeeper. And so I often, as a young child, would design zoos. And now, interestingly enough, on the board of the National Trust, one of our major properties, of course, is the Currumbin Animal Sanctuary with the hospital and everything there. So I find that really weird that, the things that you do as a child don't necessarily evolve into your career, but you still find yourself supporting that. And within our youth program here at Artslink, I've just commissioned a production about 3 endangered species in Queensland, about the bilby and the cassowary and the dugong. So, strangely enough, I'm still finding a way in my life to support animals and raise kids' awareness of our natural fauna and flora. Well, I think we're all working in an environment where the funding's reducing all the time, and that's a real challenge. As to how we survive, because governments of all colours and persuasions always seem to think that's the easy thing to cut, and in fact it's the one thing they should leave in place. So hopefully one day they'll get that. But in the meantime, I suppose there are challenges that come for regional touring, and I'm very interested in regional Queensland but also regional Australia, because I'm on the board of Regional Arts Australia, so we're very concerned about the issues to do with regional touring, particularly the small communities, where the costs are rising and the support is waning. And there's a lot of vested interests, I guess, out there as well that aren't always in the best interests of access to regional communities. So I think regional touring is a challenge. I think proper and meaningful access to indigenous communities, about indigenous product and programs for indigenous communities, and and programs where Indigenous actors can engage and be meaningfully involved. I mean, we're trying to do a lot of that here, but that is a challenge. There are cultural challenges and geographic challenges and financial challenges and all sorts of things. But nevertheless, it's a challenge that needs to be addressed, and I guess we and many other organisations are doing our best to do that.